I used to believe trust was the strongest glue in a marriage. David and I had built a life together over the last 6 years, a little house in the suburbs, weekend trips, plans to start a family. We laughed together, fought over stupid things like who forgot to take out the trash, and always made up before bed. At least I thought we did. It started with a phone call. A number I didn't recognize flashed on David's screen while he was in the shower. I'd never been the snooping type, but something about that call felt different. The screen lit up again. "Hey, handsome, can't wait for tonight." My stomach twisted. I didn't recognize the number, and part of me wanted to believe it was a work colleague, a joke, anything but what it looked like. I tried to push it aside, but later that night, while David was making dinner, his phone buzzed again. He laughed it off. "Probably spam," he said, slipping it into his pocket before I could see. But the way his voice cracked, like a teenager caught lying, made my heart sink. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I replayed every moment from the past few weeks, how he'd started working late, how his hugs had felt less like home and more like habit. I wanted to believe it was just work stress, but deep down, I knew something was off. The next morning, David left early. He kissed me on the cheek, but it felt rehearsed, like he'd been practicing that same goodbye for someone else. I watched him drive away and felt like a piece of me went with him. I knew I had to find out the truth, but I wasn't sure how. I'd never been the suspicious type, but now every smile, every word felt like it could be a lie. And so I decided I would find out the truth no matter what it cost me. I spent the next day on autopilot, working, answering emails, pretending everything was fine. But every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time David's name popped up, my heart sank. That night, I tried to act normal. I made his favorite dinner, spaghetti with extra parmesan, and even opened a bottle of wine. He smiled and said he'd had a long day at the office. He talked about some new project, but his words felt like static. "Can you pass the salt?" he asked. And for a moment, I almost forgot everything. Almost. After dinner, I cleaned up while he disappeared into the living room. I could hear his phone buzzing, low and insistent. I tiptoed over, and there it was. His screen lit up with another message. "Tonight was perfect. I can't wait to see you again." My stomach twisted. My hands shook. My head spun. I walked back into the kitchen, trying to calm the storm brewing in my chest. My mind raced. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next morning, after he left, I called my best friend, Mia. She was always the strong one, the no-nonsense voice I needed. "Mia," I said, voice trembling, "I think David's cheating on me." She was silent for a beat, then let out a long sigh. "Tell me everything." I told her about the messages, the late nights, the perfume that wasn't mine, how he'd been so distant lately. "Sarah, you need to know for sure," she said. "Follow him. Find out where he goes when he's working late. You deserve the truth." The thought made my heart race, but deep down, I knew she was right. That night, David left around 7, saying he had to meet a client at a restaurant across town. My chest felt like it was caving in, but I grabbed my keys and followed him at a safe distance. He drove across town, through winding streets I'd never noticed before, until he parked near a small, trendy bistro. I stayed back, watching from the shadows. A few minutes later, I saw her, tall, brunette, laughing as she walked toward him. David stepped out of the car and kissed her on the cheek like he'd done it 1,000 times before. I felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. The man I thought I knew was a stranger, but this time I had proof, and I wasn't going to let him gaslight me anymore. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David's face lit up by that street lamp as he greeted her, his smile wide and genuine in a way I hadn't seen in months. I could still hear her laughter, soft and intimate, like they shared a secret I could never understand. The next morning, I watched him over breakfast. He looked the same as always, sleepy-eyed, a little scruffy, telling me about some big project at work. But now I saw the small details I'd missed before. The way he kept his phone face down, the way his gaze darted away when I asked about his plans for the evening. Part of me wanted to throw the evidence in his face and demand the truth. But another part, the quieter, more strategic side, told me to wait. I needed to be smart. I needed him to admit it, so he couldn't twist the truth. That night, I called Mia again. She came over with a bottle of wine and that determined look she always wore when she meant business. "Sarah," she said, pouring us each a glass, "you have the proof. Now you need the confession." I nodded, wiping a tear from my cheek. "But how?" She leaned forward. "You know his patterns. Next time he says he's working late, call him. Catch him off guard. Make him slip up." My heart pounded. What if he denies it? Mia's eyes hardened. "Then you show him the picture. You've got him, Sarah. You deserve the truth." The opportunity came sooner than I thought. 2 days later, David texted me, "Late meeting again tonight. Don't wait up." My hands shook as I dialed his number. It rang twice before he answered, his voice warm but tense. "Hey, babe, what's up?" "Where are you?" I asked, keeping my tone casual, like I just wanted to chat. He hesitated for a second too long. "At the office, working on the Henderson project." My stomach flipped. I took a deep breath. "That's funny," I said, my voice trembling, "because I saw you the other night at that bistro, with her silence, long and heavy." "Sarah, it's not what you think," he started, but I could hear the panic in his voice. I cut him off. "Save it, David. I saw you. I have proof. Just tell me the truth." He exhaled, defeated. "Okay, it's been going on for a while. I didn't want to hurt you." Tears streamed down my face, but I held my voice steady. "Well, you did." I sat in the living room staring at the wall, phone pressed to my ear, listening to David's shaky breathing on the other end. My chest felt like it might burst from the ache of it all. "Sarah, please," he pleaded, "let me explain. It's not what you think." But it was exactly what I thought, and worse. Every message, every stolen glance, every late night had been leading to this. "Don't," I said quietly, my voice surprisingly calm. "Just don't." He sighed, the sound filled with guilt and regret. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know. I felt stuck. I needed something different." Something different. Like our marriage was a pair of old shoes he could toss away. I wiped my eyes, angry that he could still make me cry. "Did you ever love me?" I asked, the question burning like acid on my tongue. He hesitated. "Of course I did, but things changed." "Yeah," I whispered. "They did." I hung up before he could say another word. The silence that followed was deafening, but also freeing. I'd given him the chance to confess, and he had. There was no going back now. Mia came over later, her arms full of takeout and that determined glint in her eyes. She pulled me into a hug so tight I thought I might break. "You're stronger than you think," she said. "You've got this." I managed a shaky smile. "I know." The next day, I packed a small suitcase and called a lawyer. I wasn't sure what the future would look like, but I knew I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. As I walked out the door, I looked back at the house we'd shared, every room filled with memories, good and bad. It hurt to leave, but I reminded myself that staying would hurt even more. I deserved better than whispered secrets and half-truths. I deserved honesty, love, and respect. And if David couldn't give me that, I would find it on my own. The woman I was when I married him might have ignored the red flags, but the woman I was now, she knew her worth, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less.